Throughout the 1980s, a decade of consumerism and capitalism, one brand did make a dent in American culture: Hasbro's My Little Pony. However, the brand was just as generic and one-dimensional as the decade it came from. Because of that, the brand became as basic as its very own name could possibly be. But in 2010, as the franchise was reaching its 4th generation, something changed. Layers were given to its artificial astral souls, and a more concrete living location was formed because of it. While it did exist in the 1980s, it was only as recent as 2010 where it was called Equestria, the Kingdom in the Sky. This is a storyline from U.N.I.T.S, one of the 3 storylines from said family that occurs alongside one another. I'm AJ, and before we start, I want to make one thing clear. Despite saying it numerous times in numerous videos, I am not a brony. Sure, I've used these characters in other storylines, both past, present, and future, but their reasoning for being here is due to how immensely popular the show was during the early 2010s. Of course, for Shareverse, this was a show I could not ignore incorporating. And to be honest, between this, Mecha Geisha, and Prophecy, this is the storyline I will have the least content on of the 3. So I really hope you enjoy this very short video, and let's just get right into Kingdom in the Sky. By 2013, I had already utilized Equestria 2 times in 2012. Both instances, the country was under attack by outside sources, and needed to be saved by yet even more outside sources, including my reflection for both of these incidents. Because of these invasions, the loyal servant and personal assistant to the princess, Twilight Sparkle, began to feel concerned on the state of her country. Sure, there were people outside the land that wanted to help, but there was a chance that they could easily turn their back against her people. As such, aside from her work with her friends, she spent her time prepping Equestria to being more militarized to defend the country from any outside forces. In addition, Twilight took it upon herself to change her species into an alicorn to reach her peak potential in magic. Within 2 months, Twilight became the most powerful individual in Equestria, so much so that she was able to overpower the princess and any others of equal power and became the real ruler of the country. Of course, having the brand of Gen 4 adapting this incident would make the show jump the shark. So, to keep the peace, a puppet government was formed where it appeared to look like nothing happened. Despite their xenophobic nature, Equestria still wanted to be welcomed everywhere despite how cruel and toxic the world could be. So, you can make the argument that Twilight is a morally gray character since she does watch over her people with care. Now that we have the initial conflict that had been stirring in Shareverse since 2013, what does this have to do with Sonic? Throughout the early to mid-2010s, the Sonic the Hedgehog brand was seen as a joke. Yes, Generations was a great anniversary game, but it was just that, an anniversary game. After the mediocre reception to the Wii U exclusive Lost World, and the upcoming news for a new spin-off series, Sonic had seen better days. It seemed like the dark age for the series was meant to last forever. Despite this, reception for the series continued to grow elsewhere on the internet. It was only a matter of time before all hell broke loose. When you have 2 toxic fandoms that feature anthropomorphic characters, 2 of which being blue and going at supersonic speed, it's inevitable that they would clash online. And then you get Chris Chan involved. Throughout late 2013 and all of 2014, you couldn't go anywhere online without seeing MLP and Sonic together. Animated James had his videos on the 2, countless fan art on who was faster, Sonic or Rainbow Dash, and of course, the place that featured this the most was DeviantArt. For Sonic, this wasn't anything new for him. His brand had crossed over with other series on DeviantArt before. But for Twilight, she saw Sonic as a potential looming threat that had to be eliminated. One would think Sonic would be ambushed by the Kingdom, and that would be the inciting incident for the storyline, but actually no. He was already a part of the Fox Kids special team since 2012, and while the storyline was on its last legs in 2014, he was itching to get into his own adventure without any of his subordinates' help. So, in August of 2014, he immediately accepted Twilight's challenge of the so-called battle between fandoms. But first, Sonic was gonna need some help. Kingdom in the Sky is not like most units' storylines, where there's a group of individuals teaming up to take down a common threat. While it does happen here, each member is tackling a different task in order to reach the same goal. Sonic determined the best way to defeat Twilight was hitting Equestria in different areas, that being combat, R&D, marketing, and outsider negotiations. Sonic would be the one leading his group, one he would call the Spikes. Very clever. As for the R&D development, there was no better candidate for this role than Tails. I mean, it is Sonic, you can't have him without Tails or vice versa. However, Sonic did not want to rely on his people that he already knew to help in the fight. If this was a battle between the toxic fandoms online, he needed like-minded people to help him out. For marketing, Sonic needed somebody from a fandom that could promote the feud between the Spikes and Equestria online, but was known for being a toxic source of cringe online. And, in desperation, Sonic turned to the Fox Kids Special Team for help, specifically in the Digimon region. There is no other Digimon that screams toxicity and degeneracy than Renamon. And Renamon is a fairly unique character in Shareverse that I have not brought up in a while. Long story short, she was raised to believe that all Digimon should strictly be used as companions and aids for humans, not trying to replicate their traits, such as family or gender. But through several storylines, she learned otherwise and had an existential crisis, becoming the antithesis to her quote-unquote sister, Gatomon, and her beliefs. But by 2014, she had come to peace with her loved ones and was trying to turn things around for herself. I'll go over more of her stuff in detail when I talk about my middle school years. In her Sakuyamon form, she was able to use her ties with the Spikes to promote matches and events for Sonic to fight the Equestrians, specifically the main six. And, fun fact, in Shareverse, that's why both Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric and Digimon All-Star Rumble were released on the same day, despite both games being massive pieces of shit. And lastly, outsider negotiations. This spot would be reserved for one that could peacefully talk to the country in hoping to make a mutual bond. This was the hardest recruit for Sonic. What kind of toxic fandom would ever feature someone who is a pacifist and would talk their way out of any situation? While he was scrolling through the popular fandoms at the time, one series came to mind: Attack on Titan. Hold your horses, or Jeans. Despite the show being about killing naked and deformed giants, as far as we knew, there was one glimmering light of hope and justice in it: Armin Arlet, a character known for using his head and using words as actions rather than his fists. The only issue was getting into contact with him. Supposedly, the manga and anime adaptations of AOT were under super strict NDAs, so Sonic trying to get a hold of him would be a challenge. Not to mention, living on the other side of the world didn't help either. But after double-checking his contract, Armin could help the Spikes as long as he didn't say the wrong things and stayed in his place at Paris. And so, we have our team. Well, except for a hidden person. Rouge also wanted to help and gain some personal intel on Equestria in exchange for 50% of the group's fundings. Despite this bizarre offer, Sonic couldn't say no to help, so she was deployed as a spy for the Spikes. Also, why is Rouge and the ponies humanoid whereas Sonic and Tails are still furries? For most Astral Souls in Shareverse, they like to believe that staying in a human form could get things done more conveniently. So, we have our team players, and like I said before, there's not much to gloat about. Sonic used his fist and speed, and even the Chaos Emeralds, to clash with the girls, having several races with Rainbow Dash, and fought Twilight repeatedly. Tails supplied him with weaponry and armor, and several devices to combat Equestria's forces. Sakuyamon, or her alternate Kuzamon form, promoted some stuff online to DeviantArt, and helped train Sonic. And Rouge gained some insider information that would help the Spikes. As for Armin, he visited the kingdom several times, and at one point had a private meeting with their queen. Because the meeting was secluded to the world, Armin spilled the beans about everything. This included the Eldians, the rumbling, his conversation with Aaron at the end, everything. Of course, nobody would know about this conversation until many years later. But for now, let's talk about a crossover event between Mecha Geisha, Prophecy, and Kingdom in the Sky. In September, it was right around the corner for the witching season, which was perfect timing for Sega to release the much anticipated Bayonetta 2. As such, Sonic was ordered to do a marketing tour in England with the titular witch. But during their stop at London, Bayonetta attacked him. Turns out, around that point, Laura was busy doing her quests and trials until she decided to help out the Blue Blur. Not only that, Carmilla came to visit Laura in hopes to find a fourth member in her group circle alongside her two fighting game friends. And Mecha Geisha was in the area because she was on her own investigation on Queen Yamiya's future plans. Having these three being in one spot allowed Bayo to reveal that she is actually the amalgamation of the three villains from the three storylines. She was a clone created by Queen Yamiya who was assimilated by D and was ordered by Twilight to spy on Sonic. And because Bayonetta is not only an Umbra Witch, but holds the left eye of the world, she was easily able to beat the three. As she gloated about being the one true Bayonetta, she was about to perform a summoning ritual to kill her foes. But that selfish goal only triggered one thing. One fatal mistake. She talked high and mighty about herself, which pissed off one specific individual. The real Cereza showed up in her first canonical Shareverse appearance. Needless to say, she obliterated the faker. In a way, Bayonetta encapsulates the major traits of the three main leads of Prophecy, Kingdom in the Sky, and Mecha Geisha. Much like Sonic, she works at Sega. Much like Mecha Geisha, she's an ancient warrior that only reawakened in the modern world. And for Laura, both of them are British.
British?
As for Carmilla, she found the perfect fourth member to her group, and thus the Coffee Crew was formed. Outside of the battle, all three antagonists watched the battle, as their combined creation was a failure. But for Twilight, it only motivated her to create a new weapon that would be more powerful than she could ever imagine. Like I said, I don't have much for Kingdom in the Sky, so let's jump to the finale in March of 2015. Sonic had one big final battle with the main six, reaching his way up to Twilight. The two traded blows, but with some assisted help from Rouge, Twilight was defeated and retreated the kingdom away. However, during their fight, Sonic noticed something interesting. In a sealed tube, he noticed that there was a shard of the Shining Ray in stasis. A shard of the Shining Ray can give immense power to its user as long as that person is affiliated in the Warner alignment. Because of My Little Pony not being in the Warner alignment, either its primary or secondary alignment, Sonic wondered why Twilight would have a shard on standby. He began to speculate that one day, Twilight could return with a super weapon and go after him. He informed everybody in the Spikes that they need to be ready for that day. But that's when he was interrupted. The Astro co-owner of the Disney alignment and former fellow employee of Fox Kids Special, Gatomon, in her Lilithmon form, advised Sonic to cancel the Spike program. Equestria had no future plans to attack Earth, and even with the Shining Ray, there was nothing that the group could actively do. If they attacked Equestria now, it would only prove to Twilight that the world is a cruel, unjust place. Hence, she personally terminated the group, and everybody dispersed. Sonic was initially upset by this decision, knowing that an unstoppable killing machine could come out of Equestria at any moment. But if Gatomon knew what was best, so be it. Back at Equestria, Twilight was keeping the Shining Ray in her possession, and offered her only best friend from the outside world, Raven, to watch over it. Why are these two best friends? It's pretty obvious, isn't it? They both have purple, they both like to read, they're both played by Tara Strong, and back when the hub was Discovery Kids, Raven was the secret leader of that group for Astro Souls, much like how Twilight is the secret leader for Astro Souls at the hub. For more information on Raven, check out Universal Disaster Discovery. But it wouldn't take long until Twilight found the perfect individual ripe for the Shining Ray. Someone that she had kept an eye on since the crossover. and she personally believed that if she could infuse the shining ray into this person, that person would be powerful enough to pierce the heavens. And that was Kingdom in the Sky, a very interesting U.N.I.T.S storyline. Sorry there wasn't a lot of fighting here compared to Mecha Geisha or Prophecy, but the storyline is a perfect period piece of what happens when two fandoms engage in Shareverse, especially as toxic and disgusting as My Little Pony and Sonic fans. Again, see Chris Chan. As hinted at in the ending, this storyline leads into another U.N.I.T.S storyline titled Pierce the Heavens, which I already made a video on. But I still want to make a very short addendum video to Pierce the Heavens, so be on the lookout for that. In any case, if you liked the video, consider liking and subscribing. Until then, I'm AJ, and I'll see you all in the next one.